everyone, and welcome to another episode of Chain Talk. Today we are with you with blockchain in gaming industry. That is quite interesting. Like always, I'm not going to do much of the talking, and I'm just going to let our guest of honor introduce himself first. So Dirk, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Dirk Lüth. I'm based here in Silicon Valley in California. Originally, I'm from Germany, but I live here since 11 years. And I have started, and I'm a co-founder of the company called Uplandme, which has created the product called Upland. And we are in the gaming and internet business.
That's really interesting. The first conversation Dirk and I were having about him being on Chain Talk and then about the Uplandme, he wanted to make sure that I understood Uplandme as what it really is and not mistake it with a property ownership solution on blockchain. And that was really interesting because as we hear more about Upland further, you will realize what a cool game it is in property ownership, but this is still a game. But this is what the real future will look like, at least what I think. That's why I really wanted Dirk to be on Chain Talk and for all of us to hear what they are doing and how they are doing it and how we all as users can be part of this land. So Dirk, the tradition is that we start the show by asking you to give us a one-sentence definition of blockchain. And that is because we have a lot of audience probably that they are not very well familiar with blockchain yet. So what would that one sentence be from you?
Well, the one sentence is basically it's a trusted exchange, between multiple but untrusted entities as such, right? So I don't need to know you when I exchange something, but that's the sentence, right? Trusted exchange value between multiple untrusted entities.
That's really interesting because every guest that we have, I ask the same question, and every guest give me a different answer based on what feature and characteristic of blockchain is highlighted in their solution. And that is really cool. That really makes blockchain very diverse, I would say. So, but how would you now expand this definition to one paragraph if you want to elaborate on it?
Yeah, so if we want to elaborate it, when we say a trusted exchange of value, what is always people say, and that's an important thing, and what was obviously, blockchain brought into the whole idea of doing things digitally, because when the internet came up, it was about information exchange, and it lowered the cost actually of information distribution. But what you could not really do, of course, you had some, let's say, solutions, when you had a credit card transfer and so on, but there was always a centralized unit in between. Now everything's really decentralized, and was really, because you have this exchange of value, you can do, and we call it always somehow, it leads to the ownership revolution. That means because now I can give you something of value, I'm sure that you or I first own it and I transfer it to you and you now own it. And very often in the blockchain, people say that's called true ownership. So I truly own it. Nobody can take it away from me because I have it. I have it on the blockchain. I can always see it. Others can see it, and I can transfer it to others. And that's what's really revolutionary, and that was going to change a lot of things, in our daily life going forward.
But how are you now, Dirk, involved with blockchain, if you want to let us know, and just a little more on what are you doing with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are creating, people always put us into the bucket of a game, right? And I want to maybe have 1 or 2 cents before when you talk about gaming in general. First of all, gaming is a huge industry now, right? There's about $150 billion industry. You have 2.5 billion people playing, and gaming somehow becomes a part of our everyday life, right? It's not just that you do something; it's completely separated, And we always say also here at Upland, and I'll explain a little bit later, gaming blurs with our real life; it blends into it in a certain way, and that's what
makes it and I are always competing on our games. Like we're always competing on who is going advanced.
Yeah, it's much more exciting, right? Because when you look at the traditional entertainment industries, which are now smaller than gaming, right? When you go, I mean, of course, you're always immersed into media. Let's say when you watch a movie, right? You watch for 2 hours. Now maybe you have, Netflix, and you binge watch something for 10 hours or even longer, right? But it's still different when you can become an active part in everything. You act in it, and that's what makes it so exciting. I think that's why the future is bright. I personally eventually believe also that the other type of entertainment and media, they will eventually morph somehow into gaming. That always blends together again, as I said. But what we are doing. So Upland, it's basically a parallel world where users, and we call them Uplanders, they either play, of course, but it goes further. They can run businesses, and they can socialize with each other. Right? In the very early days, very often we have been compared, and everyone has probably played Monopoly, the game, when they were young. We've been compared in the press to that. I mean, that's really brings it, to a point at the beginning, right? That's what it is. It's a property trading game initially, and everything's based on a real world, and that's what's also the big difference. Also towards the board game, when you only have fictional streets. Where you have to collect those streets, multiple streets, and you can build on them. In our case, it's different. You buy a property which is based on a real-world address. And we're currently live. We just launched our open beta early this year. We are live currently in San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, where you can go and buy a property on Mission Street, Lombard. There's a lot of ways what you can do. What you cannot do yet is all the landmarks. Golden Gate Bridge, you probably know that's not open, but you can buy those properties. And the initial, let's say, gamification, what we put to it is that first of all, once you bought a property, you start earning a yield on it, on income. And this is, let's say, our Apex. It's called Apex coin. It's an in-game cryptocurrency which we have. And so you earn a certain amount of Apex just for the pure fact that you're owning it. And we decided to give that out to the users in the beginning, to get the economy going, that starts, because you always need something to do that. So now you own a property. So that's, to guide you through a quick walkthrough. It's a very, and the way it works basically very much like when you have an app, and come to that a little bit later. We're available cross-platform, but the idea is you zoom in very much like in Google, and you zoom all the way down to a property which you can purchase. So once you purchase it, you earn those Apex, and now we say, hey, now you can go and do a collection. Collect 2 or 3 properties, in the same neighborhood, or collect multiple museums. And there's different different collections you can complete, but they vary in the difficulty level. Of course, the first one's super easy. Just own 1 property in San Francisco. Voila, you completed the first collection. It goes up, all the way up. We have a curator collection, because we only have a limited amount of properties, of museums in the city, of course. Once you completed a collection, you do actually earn an increased income on it. You get a one-time boost in Apex, or in-game cryptocurrency, and then you have a recurring boost as long as you hold that collection. And now we have all our players that are exchanging, flipping properties, optimizing the portfolio, and so on, and having lots of fun around that. So that's when we came out what the product originally had. In this meantime, we've added other things like what we say, treasure hunts, where we're hiding treasures in the city, and the one who gets to it first, he gets a little, what we call small piñata, and then you have to, piñata, I don't know if your listeners know what that is, a very, I think, Mexican tradition, where you actually have to, in normal life, in someone's birthday, you have to hit it, and then some sweets fall out. In our case, it's basically, you have to hit it and tap it with your finger on your phone very often, then some Apex fall out, and you get those Apex. And the third thing we've introduced is so far is the idea that we have live events. So we had, for instance, a live event on Museums Day. We had a live event on May 4th. May the 4th be with you, like from Star Wars. We had spaceships around San Francisco and so on. So there's a lot of things you can do in the app, but we're still in beta. So we're not going, because we still have to add lots of more features into it. And we just announced now over the weekend our next roadmap, because now because I said this is all play, and basically Upland is based on 3 pillars. It's called entertainment, which is play. The second pillar is business. And that means earn, and then the third pillar is socialize and community, right? So it's play, earn, connect. So we have a lot of things we done with the play feature. Now we're adding connect. Now we're adding more with the connect features and with the earn feature. The earn one will be very much like Monopoly. You will be able to acquire business licenses. And so then you can start running a business in Upland. And that now it becomes really interesting because it's not that you just flip a property and try to speculate. Now we can run a business like a virtual nursery, a virtual gallery, virtual car dealership. You can go and sell things in Upland and eventually make money for yourself, right? So that's kind of what makes it interesting for the players. And then we have also the connect part. So for instance, you can also start and run a coffee shop, and you can invite people and you can do certain things offer them to them, and they have small communities, especially when they're very local. So these are the main the vision, and that's what we have today, and that's where it's going in a very quick manner.
That's really exciting. That's really exciting. And but how many users do you have now? You have just launched, right?
Yeah, we have just launched, and thanks to blockchain, everything's pretty much transparent, obviously. So we have roughly 8,000 active users who are playing every day. But we have actually much more users because who are also in there, but who are not an Uplander yet. And I have to explain what that means. Because when you look at blockchain, when I earlier said it's true ownership, and when you are a game operator, the thing is, when we would transfer the goods to the users, right? We as a game operator obviously lose control over them because we want that the users or that the players own them. However, very often people come in, they're not so sure if they want to play, and you have that, that's in the this term is for that freemium play, or what you have, people can start playing and then they eventually have to then invest some money if they want to advance faster, in traditional games and so on. We also have that in a certain way. So you can sign up on upland.me on the website, or you download the app on iOS or Android. I mentioned it before. We're one of the rare, blockchain gaming or applications who actually are in the stores also, but you can also play it not just on the web. And but in the beginning, you are just in Upland with a Visa. So the way it works, actually, you have to actually sign in every 7 days, or at least once, to extend your Visa. If you don't do that and you collected assets, you would actually lose those assets. We would recycle them, right? So this gives you an incentive to always come back. However, because there we're still in control of those assets. However, we say, that's not really blockchain, but we said in the beginning it's important for us because you have to see, we're playing around with scarcity here. And, the world is not, endless, it's limited. You only have a certain number of properties in each city. So, and we cannot just give it away and then, then it's going to be ghost town or whatever, right? That was very important for us that people, they can get an idea how the game works. And once they accumulated more than 10,000 APEX, and I haven't mentioned that yet, $1 equals 1,000 APEX, so it's equal roughly $10. Well, it's $10. Then actually you become an Uplander. So we have a ceremony, like there's some visual effects, hey, congratulations, you now immigrated to Upland in a certain way. And then you actually start keeping your assets forever. So that's very important. Yeah, but also what people have to have in mind that our game is, and people always ask me, well, how do you position it and so on. So when you see in the younger generations, they have Roblox, then you have Minecraft. Our game is very much for the a little bit older people who are already have started to earn, their own income, who want to do things, so 21 years plus or something. So that's something also important, because in our game you have to invest and in the senses and put in some real money. It's not that you can play for free forever. You can do that, but it takes you a long of time. But when we look at this, the people we are addressing, most of them are, they have a job. They cannot, spend 6 hours a day and play, right? They want to come in and they want want to spend something. The way we created, and that's what is also we completely entering a new type of genre of game or real world. I said earlier that we are somehow a parallel world, because what we allow people also, we closed a partnership just recently with a very large other old game, which is called Second Life. They were very much the first one. They started 2002 or 3, something along those lines. They created also virtual world. We did partnership with them and their payment provider. Because what we will allow users or Uplanders, also we have not implemented that, we just announced that partnership, is the idea is once you have a property, you can go and sell it not just for Apex on the marketplace to other players or trade it and another property. In the future, you will also exchange it to other players against fiat currency. So actually, you will have a way to get your money out again, out of the system. And that was
exactly what I was going to ask you. That was exactly what I was going to ask you. Like, let's say if I buy a property in San Francisco and then I want to sell it out, will I be able to get back the money?
Yes, so that's the way. I mean, we as a company, we wouldn't buy it back. So you have to find someone, right? And we see that also the prices are going up.
Uplandme.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very much like real life. It's very educational, right? So where do you buy, and how do prices develop? Very often I get asked, how do prices develop in Upland? And to answer that question is because it's learning how the market economy works at the end of the day. I mean, we took originally the prices of one, what the official prices are. We can see that in Zillow and other providers on the internet. So we took basically the structure of that, and we said, okay, the cheapest one should cost around $2 to $5, and then of course, depending on size and where the properties are, the prices go up in Upland as such, right? So. And but the interesting thing is here, because since somehow it's real money and you can get real money out, it enters a completely new era of gaming, because all of a sudden, okay, I play on one hand, on the other hand, it's real life things, or I start running a business, I start selling, maybe what I mentioned in nursery, starting selling virtual plants to other players, right? So now it becomes really interesting, because now when you are really creative and do things, right, you actually can, and this is also part of the vision what we have with Upland, that people will have maybe real jobs one day in Upland. That would be awesome, right? That they become a great garden designer, virtual garden designer, right? Or maybe you have the real nursery in real life, right? And all this pandemic time.
Uplander is a practice for future. That's what I would call it, honestly. But what was the gap that you saw in the market? Why did you go after Uplandme? So why did you think this is now the solution to fill this gap?
So first of all, it's always, you don't create a product, you build a platform because there's a new technology out there, right? That's something, you use technology in order to meet a need. And, we're in the age of digitization. Everything gets digitized these days. That means also an automated. And when you look at, for example, and you have a lot of discussions around that, what does it mean, automation, right? People say, for instance, if you want a clear example, the truck drivers, right? Once, you have self-driving trucks, all the truck drivers eventually will, unfortunately be, out of profession. And so that's digitization has good sides, and also it has also lots of pressure for certain areas of the society. However, as an entrepreneur, I'm very optimistic always, and I say, okay, that's just the way it is. And what distinguishes us as humans is that we are really creative people, right? And that's where machine learning, will probably take still a very long time, how we can differentiate also in the future. So, but having that in mind, and when you go to the real world is somehow limited in a certain way. When you go digital or virtual, you can become much more creative also, right? And that's where we believe. So the problem, coming back to your question, was Upland is made for people who think they cannot really, develop their whole creativity or their business sense or what have you, right, in the real world. There's not enough things they can do. And that's where we say, okay, it's really for those people who want to expand, their possibilities into the virtual world. However, since we are based on the real world, there's always, this back and forth between two things. Now, those two things, the real world and the virtual world, and that's where we believe is a huge wave coming towards us going forward.
That's really interesting. What would be the advantages, or like, what do I as a user gain out of Upland? Like, what are the advantages for me, or what do I learn, or what is the fun, like that feature that highlights Uplandme? Yeah,
so let's say on an abstract level, the highlight is, of course, because it's the real world, right? Everyone can associate, something. I mean, San Francisco, many people have traveled there because, of course, it's a touristic city. Even people have seen the Golden Gate Bridge and have been, walking around the city and so on. But, eventually we're going to, roll out all across the world, and there will be smaller cities, not everyone knows, but the people who live there, that find it interesting, right? To not just do a collection there, but maybe to run those virtual/real businesses in their, in their location, in their city. So that's what makes it interesting, I think, on the high level.
You have like your own preset regulations as well then, on the ownership of all these properties.
Yes, yeah, we were controlling that, right? So, I mean, we defined the rules, but then, I mean, we are, at the end of the day, from mindset, we're also very decentralized. I mean, right now, we still, when you see that, like when you start something new, you always, it's very much like parents, children, right? In the beginning, you really have to help them. You have to, teach them, do things, the older they get, the more you back out, right? And that's exactly the same thing what we want to do as a company. It's really, in the beginning, we will define more things for people, but, over time, we pull out more and more. And then, hopefully we also can make lots of decisions we currently doing as founders or as a management team, we can delegate that more and more to the community, or to, on-chain discussions, or other ways of doing governance. Right, so this is actually becomes much more democratized, in the future.
Exactly. And but what would be the challenges for users to adopt your solution?
Yeah, so normally when you go to blockchain, the challenge is, you have to be, these days, very technical. You have to deal with a private key, a wallet, and that automatically excludes most of the people, right? So, we're talking consumer here, right? It's just too cumbersome to do things. In Upland, actually, we are obfuscating all of that, on purpose. So in Upland, all you need is just an email and a password, and then you can actually start playing or doing or operating a business going forward. So that was very important for us. And also, we always said, okay, we have to be also cross-platform. We cannot just be on, on the desktop browser. That's also why we said, okay, we want to be on iOS, we want to be on Android, well, or on the web. We are there as well, so you can just go there and play. You can one day log in on the web, but the next day maybe play on your phone, or do some stuff on the phone. So that was very important. What's also important is, many people don't have access to crypto yet, or have never bought any crypto. So when you go onto the web, you can actually use PayPal and credit card to purchase Apex in our game, or we also allow you to use crypto to purchase Apex, right? And then we have on iOS and Android, you can do in-game purchases. So it's very much things what, let's say, the mass audience is used to do. We let them do that as well. And once they start playing Upland, or walking around those virtual worlds, our virtual world, then they actually start owning blockchain stuff, right, without really knowing it. And that's what makes it kind of interesting, right? And as I said, there will be money out in the future also, so they actually can see, and then they can then just, then decide for themselves, hey, I want to stay in this, let's say, blockchain world or crypto world, or I want to go out and put it back into fiat. And I want to also add one more thing. What we also want to install, we need some regulatory clearance there, is we want to bring real world tokenized assets into the game as well. To give you one example. So let's say just you have a Picasso, a real
Painting.
Picasso there in your painting, and people always talk about tokenization, right? Or maybe you have an old-timer car which gets tokenized, right? The real version is actually, in a garage, or it's in a museum in the case of a Picasso painting, right? And then you, as a person, you can maybe purchase one token, right? And then you own part of that Picasso, but then you have the right, and then you can bring in that into Upland, and now you can put the Picasso in your virtual house, right? Now you have the full thing there. So that's what makes it fun, because that's what I always think in this whole tokenization, fractional ownership, also called things, is where people own things, right? But somehow they cannot really do things. Now we give them actually also purpose, which is kind of interesting.
I'm going to be an Uplander. Are you going to issue a visa for me?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to send in my visa application tonight. I think it's really cool. And to me, it sounds like an investment into future, because you never know how things are moving now, right?
I like that. That investment in the future is the right thing, right? I tend to say, of course we have speculators and who want to do a quick dime. I think people have to understand that there's a much larger vision behind it. You had those comparisons with metrics and all these kind of things with us, but and of course we always have, our story was also where we came from, is we actually, the way we saw, because I sat together with my two co-founders, Manny Honigstein and Idam Zuckerman. We had a game night where we played actually Monopoly, and I think it was another night where we actually watched the Netflix series Stranger Things, and we've seen it. There's actually a parallel world. It's a little bit negative world because there are monsters in there and so on, right? But that's what we said. Hey, it would be cool to have a parallel world where people do things, right? But then bring it back to the real world. Anyhow, that's our story.
That's really interesting. But while you were actually trying to develop this game, what was your own challenges? What challenges did you face that you were trying to make a parallel world on blockchain, but also make it sound perfectly interesting and easy and attractive and not scary that people will run away because it's blockchain? So what was your own challenges?
Yeah, so when I said, we wanted, from day one, we said, okay, we want to build something which is suited for the mass audience, right? For really the average person who just don't want to deal with all that complicated stuff of blockchain. So when we started out, and it was, I have to look back, it was actually somewhere in early 2018 when we sat together first. We didn't incorporate any company, but we just sat together, strategize, what could we do, and so on. That's the rough idea, and then we started looking at different blockchains, and of course, the first thing you come up with is, the Bitcoin blockchain you cannot use for these purposes, and the first thing you look at is Ethereum. But for Ethereum was where we said, it's really still complicated, and Ethereum had at that time still too many disadvantages to create a mass market audience game or application, because and then you have gas fees and all these things, and where we decided this is not, we cannot do our live our vision with, and when we build it on that, right? So we started looking out, and since this was the time where you have all the ICOs of different blockchains coming out, so we looked at a couple of blockchains, and then actually we found the EOS blockchain. And I looked at that, and EOS actually fulfilled a couple of things, on a technical perspective, which we wanted to have fulfilled, right? Like, like this account names for users. We have, high scalability. It's fast. It's super fast, and that's all what EOS promised. And you could see that in the test nets, and so that's actually working. Of course, we checked it out. And then I said, hey, this is the blockchain which suits our specific need. And then also EOS announced that they are actually, I think they raised roughly $4 billion in their ICO. And then they said they're going to put $1 billion back into, let's say, developing on top of the blockchains, giving that to other venture capitalists. And that's where I said, maybe we should try out to reach with them, because of course, since we're a startup, right, we also needed to raise money. And that's how we came together with FinLab out of Frankfurt in Germany. And so we raised money from them back in the late 2018, plus some other angels, to get us started. And that's how we, up to today, we're very happy with our decision, because it works actually quite well. So that's something, was really perfectly suited our needs.
That's perfect. That's really interesting. But my favorite question is, do you think blockchain is going to revolutionize gaming industry?
That's a very good question, right? And I think so, yes. If you look at all the games, big games today, and I think, from when you're a player, right, and I don't want to point out certain things, but let's say just regular, AAA game, how they're all called, right? The problem is when you invest as a player into that game, what you get out of it is, of course, the entertainment, right? You play it and so on, and you start developing it, you're buying skins, you're buying certain swords or whatever you do in different games, right? And you invest time, money, and your creativity. But in the, let's say, worst case, maybe this gaming provider goes out of business, right? Then, well, you lost everything, right? You had the entertainment factor thing while you were playing, right? But now you cannot play anymore. Maybe you invested to cool skins, and it's all gone as such, right? So, and that's why we believe now you're getting actually, as a gaming operator, also like us, you're actually getting much more aligned with the player themselves. And this will also increase then what is, in the gaming, lingo is called the customer lifetime value. That means, people are willing to spend money because they know they can actually get it out again. They truly own it. That's what we said. And now they will spend more money, i.e. they will increase the customer lifetime value. And I'm pretty sure that all those AAA game providers, they will start looking into blockchain solutions. They're looking at, companies like us who are, who are getting just started. They're learning from us, of course, as well. But I'm pretty sure that, let's say 5, I don't know, whatever time frame, they will start having their own blockchain solutions because they see they need to have it, and players actually demanding it, right? And they demand because they vote with, what they buy and what they don't buy as in games. So that's why it's going to change it. That also means, but also that the big gaming prize, they need also to rethink their business model. That's why I think it will revolutionize the industry.
So you do consider yourself as one of the first movers in gaming industry to work with blockchain?
Yes, absolutely. There were others before. You had CryptoKitties, probably aware of them, right? They were the first, let's say, kind of game, collectible game. And then you had a couple of others, but everything is very new, and the numbers is different also, right? When you start maybe an iPhone game, take Pokemon Go, right? That actually exploded, within the first month when it was released. Of course, they had the advantage that everyone knew what Pokemon was and the big brand and so on. But that's the nice thing about games, it's not like a business-to-business application which slowly grows and goes up, right? Game can really go like this. So that's but blockchain gaming, and we are also still in an open beta right now. We haven't put a lot of money behind advertisement and so on because we want to add some features, but eventually it will come and will probably get into the, let's say, the levels like regular games, I'm pretty sure.
I have this typical question that I ask all of our guests, and that is the relationship between digital transformation and blockchain. So what do you think of it? A lot of people believe that the more digitally transformed societies are less likely to adopt blockchain. Some people think otherwise. What is your point of view?
Yeah, so the relationship between blockchain and digital transformation, I think if you look What I said earlier today, I think what we're currently seeing is acceleration in general and the whole digital transformation, right? Because of the current pandemic, I mean, in Sweden was probably less, but was very less restrictive. But around the world, we were all locked in, shelter in place, and all of a sudden, people, kids had to go to digital classrooms, and everyone was really forced to use much more digital things as before, and that has, of course, accelerated. It's also on level, public services levels. You do many more things, just online now. So actually, I think the bad that this whole pandemic is around the world. I think it has probably, the good news is it has accelerated on one hand the digitalization. Of course, it has also hopefully a positive impact also on the whole, global warming aspects and so on. I don't want to go there at this moment, but that's what has been accelerated. So, but now you get blockchain into it, and that's where what I said initially in our talk today is that is actually what makes it so interesting, because now you can exchange value, and now people, when they now sit at home and they're creating things, not just in our world but in general, you also call the gig economy, right, and all these kind of things, where people now will do more because they can make a living out of it. And that's why I believe that blockchain will even accelerate the whole idea of digital transformation even further, right? Because there was somehow the missing piece in everything, right? I was able to exchange information super cheap, super quickly, right? But now I can really transfer value, and that's what makes it super compelling.
So you see blockchain as an enabler?
Yes, absolutely. Right. But it's always very important that, you not say it's just because of blockchain. I think at the end of the day, you have to think in customer, solutions, or, either you entertain people or you solve a problem. That must be still the first thing, right? And otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. But if you want to tell us about the status of adoption of blockchain in your industry, in the region that you're working, what would that be?
So, of course, we have, so in terms of in the gaming industry, I said earlier, it's kind of, it's more the startups you have in that space right now who are doing things. You have one or two, of course, they're all not disclosing it publicly, but I've seen, some of the larger players like Ubisoft, they are looking into, blockchain solutions, and probably they want to put their feet into the water and see, okay, what does it mean, and so on. So everyone's trying it out at the moment, but it's very, very much at the infant stage as such, right? Mm-hmm. When you say where I'm based right now, I'm based in Silicon Valley, and that's somehow for the first time, as I've been living here now since 11 years, seeing so many waves. Myself, I'm over 15 years, so almost 20 years now in tech in general. And, Silicon Valley was always the thing, as we all knew, where all the innovations came from. I think for the first time, blockchain looks different to me. First of all, you had all those ICOs, which anyhow was a global thing where, companies raised money through that, and anywhere was able to do that. However, I also have the feeling that blockchain specifically is also will probably create also interesting companies, interesting products, and not just coming out of the Silicon Valley. I think Silicon Valley they have some good companies here. Look at Coinbase and so on, right? But if you look at Binance, of course they're not from here. So you have a lot of companies really, and which is actually also good, is everything is not centralized here, is that who are coming not out of the Silicon Valley.
Interesting. So what would you say is the driving wheel, the factor that makes adoption of blockchain in gaming industry easier?
Well, the first thing is, of course, I think people should not really feel in the beginning that they're using a blockchain application. All of a sudden they can do new things, and they say, oh, that's interesting, and then they start playing it and recommending it to their friends and so on. I think that's the most important thing. Is that it's a natural thing how it gets into it, but you get additional features or additional things you were not able to do before, like cashing out again, right? That makes it interesting. Yeah.
So user friendliness and factors that they can actually trust the game.
That's important. Yeah, that's always important, right? That you can do things, and because you can always verify, was there a transaction, was it legit? I go to the blockchain, go to any of those open tools which are out there, and I see the transaction has happened, right? And then this creates trust for me, right? That this game is something I want to do, play forward more often.
So now what would be the obstacles in adoption of blockchain in gaming industry?
I think mainly regulatory, right? That's also why we as a company are super careful, right? When I said we allow now fiat out, in the US, for instance, to give you one concrete example, you need to have a money transmitter license to do that. And that also includes then know your customer, KYC and money laundering, AML. So you need to do all these things when you allow people to cash out, because that's just the way regulation is. And that's also personally, I also think it's important because there's so many quick fraud, not just in the blockchain or the gaming industry. People always try to game the systems to, benefit from it and to do, things which are not legit. So I think but at the same time, regulatory is important. But there's so many gray areas right now which are not decided. Like in blockchain in general, right? You had all these ICOs and STOs, and what's the security, what is not the security, this kind of things, which makes it really difficult. Not just blockchain and gaming, but also maybe other blockchain and DeFi or decentralized finance, right? Are people really allowed to do that? Because there are no rules these days, right? So, and certain things, I think that sometimes we need some more, regulation to have clarity. And sometimes, we should have less regulation in order that the industry can develop further, right? Mm-hmm. And that's, where the regulators really have to think about, okay, how can we, accelerate this industry and learn ourselves, right? And of course, when things are getting too extreme, of course, then they have to say, well, we want to avoid, that, so just a small number of people do some fraudulent things and benefit then in general. Mm-hmm. But that's I think the like blockchain in general, but regulation is also important in the gaming space.
And I'm sure that has definitely slowed you down at some point, or
yeah, sure. I mean, technically we could have offered right away, right? Sell for fiat or whatever, right? But that's, and then I said, okay, no, we need a money transmitter license. And, the good thing is that we were able to partner here with Linden Lab, the creators of Second Life and their subsidiary Telia, because if we now, as a let's say small company, would have had to apply for all money transmitter licenses across all states in the US, it would have taken us probably 3 years and lots of money, right? And so that's something, and hopefully we can continue using those kind of service for whatever we want to do, in order to accelerate. Because when you're early company, you cannot afford waiting for 3 years to bring your product out. Because it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
So.
What would be the future of gaming industry, or how would you describe gaming industry with and without blockchain?
Okay, let's assume there would be no blockchain at all. I think gaming would also eventually become much more immersive for us as such. What I mean with that, of course, again, it's technology driven. You have virtual reality and augmented reality, and that's going to come anyways, right? So where people put on their, their glasses and walk around in the streets and do something in the streets, augmented reality wise and so on. So I think that's going to happen, would have happened also without blockchain. Right, but with blockchain now becomes even more interesting. Right, when let's stay with this example. So you have your virtual augmented reality glasses, which all the big producers or all the big vendors are going to offer soon. Right, and then you're going to walk through the streets, and then you see a digital item, and now with blockchain you can say, hey, I want to buy going back to my original idea, I can buy this virtual plant now and take it home, right? And as such, just a stupid example maybe, but that's the idea, is and then where blockchain comes in again, right? So this might be owned by someone, not by a centralized entity, but this might be owned by a private person who's just willing to sell that plan to me and that moment.
I wonder if there will be any time in future a conflict between the properties we own in San Francisco in Uplandme and the real owners of the properties. Have you ever thought of that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, I mean, we're completely decoupled from that, right? So there's, you don't get any, when you purchase a property in Upland, that you get it somehow in the real life. So that's completely decoupled. But we always say we're rebuilding the world again in a certain way, right? So that's the idea. However, right, when you are the real owner in the real world, nothing, prevents you from purchasing that property, in Upland and then somehow combine it. I wanted just to mention also that if you're interested in joining Upland, so we prepared a special link here for Chain Talk. If you go to discover upland.me/Chain Talk, and use that link, and it will be also in the show notes, then you actually get a higher sign-up bonus of 6,000 APEX, which is higher than the normal bonus. So it's worth it to click that little link.
Let's go and start trading properties there. Thank you so much.
All right.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much, Dirk, and it was a really interesting and different discussion. And so for all of you who are watching, we are going to have a live discussion around the same topic with Dirk on 22nd of June at 5 p.m. Central European Time on LinkedIn. So do join us on that session. Watch the episode first, please, and then you can just jump on the live session and ask your questions from Dirk. And thank you so much, Dirk, for joining us. And we look forward to see how Uplandme is growing. And please do issue me a visa. I'm going to send in my application soon.
Come in. Yeah, join us. Upland.me or download the app store, right? And then you can go and play. Happy to see you all in Upland.
Yeah, that would be cool. Thank you so much. Thank you. And bye.
Bye-bye.